What's up everybody, your friendly neighborhood Tony, and in this video I'm going to share with you the 5 best Chris Hemsworth movies of all time. Well, maybe not of all time, I don't know what the future will bring, but as of right now at least. So if you're looking for some movie recommendations starring Chris Hemsworth, you have come to the right place. Now before we get started, I want to make this very clear, these are not my favorite Chris Hemsworth movies. These aren't the highest grossing movies, anything like that. These are, based on fan and critic reviews, the highest rated movies starring Chris Hemsworth. I also want to make 2 things very clear. These are going to be movies that have Chris Hemsworth in a lead role, for one, and also I'm not going to include any really small indie films that were released in like 1 or 2 theaters in some small country in Eastern Europe. These are going to be movies that had a wide release or were released on a major platform like Netflix or something like that. All right, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with number 5. And that is, believe it or not, the 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters. Directed by Paul Feig, or Feig, I don't remember how to pronounce his name. He's the guy who directed the 2011 Bridesmaids movie. Ghostbusters 2016 follows a pair of paranormal enthusiasts, a subway worker, and a nuclear physicist, I think, as they try to save Manhattan from an invasion of ghosts. Ghostbusters stars Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, and of course Chris Hemsworth as the secretary for the Ghostbusters, who is not the brightest guy in the world. Kind of, I guess what you would call a himbo. You also have a few other cameos in this movie that are kind of fun. You have Charles Dance, who you might know from playing Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, and Karan Soni, I think that's how you pronounce his name. You might not recognize his name, but he actually, in the same year, 2016, was in Ghostbusters and was in Deadpool. He played kind of Deadpool's sidekick, the taxi driver. I think his name was Dopinder. And you also have Steve Higgins in this movie, who is a writer and cast member on Saturday Night Live. So a few different cameos here and there that are pretty fun. Despite being a pretty significant financial loss for Sony, Ghostbusters 2016, surprisingly, had some really good critic reviews, although some of the fans had some issues with it. There were some fans that had some issues with the gender swapping in the roles for this movie, which resulted in it getting kind of a review bomb on websites like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Overall though, after watching this movie, I felt like it was okay. It had a few jokes that fell pretty flat for me, but overall, I think it was a good enough time, and really Chris Hemsworth kind of stood out in every scene that he was in. So if you're looking to see him do more of his comedy thing and play that kind of role, this is definitely a movie that you'll want to check out. I don't think Ghostbusters is streaming anywhere right now for free, so I'll just link to the Blu-ray in the description box below. If you want to check out the best prices, I'll have them all there for you. Oh, and these aren't affiliate links. I don't know how to set that up, so you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't click on it. I'm just putting it there for you. All right, next up on the list, coming in at number 4 is the 2020 action thriller called Extraction. Extraction was written by a couple names you might know, Joe and Anthony Russo, and it's directed by their longtime stunt coordinator, Sam Hargrove, in what would be his directorial debut. Extraction follows Tyler Rake, played by Chris Hemsworth, who is a black market mercenary type character who gets hired by a massive drug dealer whose son has been kidnapped. And the movie is pretty much exactly what you think it is. It is a giant, over-the-top action movie with gunfire and explosions and fight scenes, and it's directed by a guy who knows a thing or two about action sequences, but who also might not be the best when it comes to directing a movie with a lot of character development and things like that. It actually really reminds me of those 80s action movies with like Schwarzenegger or Stallone or Jean-Claude Van Damme. It really has a lot of that energy in it. As a Netflix exclusive movie, Extraction was massively successful. I believe it got something like 99 million views in its first month. Overall, if you're looking for that over-the-top 80s action, maybe John Wick flavor, John Wick light, I'll say, then Extraction is definitely worth checking out. I would just temper your expectations. This isn't something you're going to be writing home about. It's just something you would turn your brain off for a couple hours and watch with a big old bucket of popcorn and maybe a beer. Extraction, as I said, is available on Netflix, so if you want to check it out there. And there's also a sequel, which I believe should be out sometime this year. Okay, coming in at number 3 is a movie that I had a lot of fun watching, and that is the 2018 neo-noir thriller Bad Times at the El Royale. Written and directed by Drew Goddard, who also wrote and directed another movie that might appear on this list very soon. Bad Times takes place at the El Royale Hotel in, I believe, the early 1970s. Four strangers with their own questionable pasts and unique reasons for being there show up at a deserted hotel, well, almost entirely deserted. There's one person who is working at the front counter, and it gets pretty crazy from there. Bad Times has a pretty stellar cast. You have Chris Hemsworth playing Billy Lee, who is kind of this David Koresh type cult character. There's also Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, Dakota Johnson, John Hamm, as well as Nick Offerman and a few other faces that you might recognize. Unfortunately, Bad Times was a bit of a box office bomb. A lot of the reasons behind that were because of when it came out, there was a lot of competition. Also, it had an R rating, which usually makes it difficult to make a lot of money. And to be fair, the movie was a bit long. Overall, I did enjoy the movie, but it certainly feels its length. There's some pacing issues. There's a lot of back and forth throughout the movie that I don't really want to spoil, but it really makes you feel like, wow, how much longer is this going to go on? That being said, the story was really interesting. It was really gripping. All of the characters were very good and very well acted. It maybe just could have been maybe tightened up a bit. Bad Times at the El Royale is streaming on Hulu if you have their live TV bundle. So if not, I'll just link the Blu-ray below along with the rest. All right, we are almost there. Coming in at number 2 is that other Drew Goddard movie I just told you about, and that is the 2011 horror comedy, The Cabin in the Woods. As I mentioned, Cabin in the Woods is directed by Drew Goddard. He also has a writing credit on it alongside one Joss Whedon, and I'll tell you what, you can absolutely feel all the Whedonism in this movie. Like many horror movies, Cabin in the Woods follows 5 young and attractive friends as they go on a vacation at a cabin in the woods. What could possibly go wrong? I don't want to share too much of what this movie is about in case you haven't seen it. If you haven't, trust me, you absolutely should. Honestly, I don't know if I've heard any real criticism about the movie. So if you've seen it and didn't really like it, let me know in the comments below. What about this movie do you think was wrong with it? In addition to Chris Hemsworth, you have Amy Acker, who is in basically every Joss Whedon movie or TV show ever. Oh, and Jesse Williams, who I immediately recognize from the video game Detroit Become Human. If you intend on watching Cabin in the Woods, do not read anything on it. Do not watch any trailers. Don't look up anything. If you've managed to not have it spoiled thus far, just go straight into the movie, I'm telling you. Unfortunately, Cabin in the Woods is not on any major streaming platforms right now for free, so you may have to pay for it or just pick it up on Blu-ray. All right, before we get to number 1, before we get to the greatest Chris Hemsworth movie of all time, as of today, right now, before any more movies come out, if you are enjoying this, do me a solid. Can you hit the little like button? It really helps out the channel. Also, if you want to see more rankings like this, or movie reviews, or trailer reactions, anything like that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you. All right, coming in at number 1 is a movie that I actually had not seen until I started piecing together this list. And that is the 2013 biographical sports movie, Rush. Rush is directed by the legendary Ron Howard and follows 2 Formula One racers, James Hunt, played by Chris Hemsworth, and Niki Lauda, played by Daniel Bruhl, aka Baron Zemo from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hunt and Lauda have a merciless rivalry and are essentially polar opposite characters. Hunt, played by Chris Hemsworth, is kind of this over-the-top, edge-of-your-seat playboy character who doesn't take anything too seriously, and Lauda, played by Bruhl, is a lot more calculated and calm in the way he deals with racing and really with his life in general. I'll tell you straight up, I am generally not a big fan of sports movies, and I've never watched anything really to do with Formula One, but this movie is really good. It is completely gripping. The races are wild and so well shot, and the characters are really well fleshed out. They're not just these caricatures that you might think they'd be. Oh, and good news, Rush is currently streaming on Netflix, so if you want to check it out, it's available there for you if you have a Netflix subscription. I don't know your life. I don't know what you subscribe to. Well, that's going to be it, my dude. I hope you found some good movies to check out. If you have any recommendations for other lists, other top 5s, top 10s that you'd like me to do, make sure you let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. All right, be good.